In the early days of the internet, pioneers shared a specific dream, a universal information society where boundless connections effortlessly improved learning and professional communication. But the reality of public interaction with early internet systems looked a lot more like this. People struggled to operate new interfaces, and the anticipated leap in comprehension simply did not materialize. Scientific investigations into these early hypertext systems returned disappointing results. Instead of enhanced understanding, researchers found that users consistently experienced a persistent sense of disorientation. Early models operated on a flawed premise that providing users with infinite nonlinear pathways through documents would naturally augment human intelligence and reading capacity. Forcing readers to navigate unguided, multidirectional information actually induces heavy cognitive overload. The nonlinear linking of information frequently proves cumbersome and impractical. This breakdown is caused by the hypertext mismatch. This is a fundamental disconnect between a digital text's non-traditional format and the innate, effective reading strategies a user brings to the task. Digitizing documents did not automatically make them easier to process. By stripping away traditional organization, the new medium actively removed the tools readers didn't even realize they relied upon. To understand why this happens, look at how competent readers operate in a print-based environment. People rely on standard organization to efficiently process information. These standard organizers are known as rhetorical schemata. They are the predictable physical margins, structured pages, and linear flow that readers subconsciously use to map and anchor their understanding of a text. The explicit goal of early online information systems was to abandon those traditional, linear ways of organizing and presenting data. By removing these predictable physical anchors, the digital format essentially forced highly competent print readers to navigate an entirely new architectural space without a map. Asking seasoned print-era readers to use complex hypertexts was like asking a 19th century horse coach driver to operate a prototype automobile. Early web users didn't fail to comprehend the material because they lacked intelligence. Their established cognitive strategies were simply rendered useless by the design of the new medium. As digital technologies developed, designers recognized this cognitive friction and shifted their focus toward the actual characteristics and needs of the user. To move forward, website design had to retreat. Developers began reusing the standard text organizers typical of the print era. Features like structured pages, clear margins, numbered indexes, and linear tables of contents are now mandatory compliance guidelines for functional website design. Contrary to what early idealists believed, being conservative with these basic text formats is exactly what allows users to effectively operate advanced digital navigation tools. A successful digital technology must offer a specific, palatable mixture of these old standard organizers and new digital search capabilities. Yet, while stabilizing the user interface temporarily anchored the reader, it did not solve a deeper underlying problem: the sheer volume of information the internet produces. Once the external layout of the web is fixed, the barrier to comprehension shifts entirely to the internal cognitive mechanics of the reader.
Historically, basic education aimed to achieve restricted literacy. This is the foundational ability to decode words, convert letters to sounds, and access a basic lexicon. In a world where printed information was scarce and expensive to produce, restricted literacy was often enough. Relevance and quality were already established for you by the publisher. The information age destroyed that scarcity. Today, digital sources have increased exponentially in both quantity and diversity. This truly infinite volume of raw digital data places a massive, heavy burden on a reader's active working memory. When tasked with building an informed opinion across multiple, conflicting documents, basic word decoding breaks down. Surviving in this unfiltered digital ecosystem requires a new, extended definition of what it actually means to be literate. Reading online is no longer confined to understanding what the words say. It demands the active cognitive management of an overwhelming deluge of context. This necessary evolutionary step is called functional literacy. The first new requirement is that the reader must understand the text as a human artifact. They have to constantly interpret information in light of the author's status, background, and hidden purposes. Assessing the relevance of a piece of information against a sea of algorithmic search engine results is now the single most difficult and critical skill a user must perform. Doing this takes a heavy mental toll. The reader must hold information from several sources in their mind simultaneously and evaluate their respective credibility, all while maintaining focus on the central problem. To manage this, the brain relies on active inhibition. This is the deliberate ability to discard or suppress information that was considered but ultimately deemed irrelevant or unreliable. Functional literacy functions as a defensive, resource-demanding cognitive operation. Recognizing this cognitive demand requires a shift in how educational institutions deploy technology. International studies on student achievement yield counterintuitive findings when comparing technology access to actual learning outcomes. This chart shows the relationship between computer access and functional literacy. Surprisingly, increasing computers per student doesn't automatically resolve learning gaps. Even in high GDP countries like Australia and France, lower achieving students are frequently found in schools with the highest ratio of computers. Providing fast, powerful digital systems to students does not automatically result in task effectiveness if the underlying cognitive skills to evaluate that information are absent. For a layperson lacking functional literacy, searching for information through a web portal remains a daunting task, regardless of the hardware they use. The digital divide defines an invisible cognitive chasm that remains even when hardware access is equalized. The divide separates those who possess the executive function to evaluate, synthesize, and inhibit information, and those who are left overwhelmed by algorithmic chaos. As societies rely more heavily on complex information systems, we need far more explicit training in document evaluation and relevance assessment to ensure community cohesion. The dream of a universal information society remains an illusion until we recognize a simple truth. The true power of a computer is inextricably locked behind the cognitive mastery of the mind operating it.